I really have to work myself up to do a video like this because I realize it's good content, it's just not going to be popular content. Like, I'm going to put this out there and it will take a while to spread. Some people will hear it. They'll say things to other people, push the idea that I'm going to push in this video, but it will take time. I really won't grow off what I'm doing here. It's like standing still. That's all I'm doing. It's good for the hobby, but in no way is it really good for me. But anyway, let's get to what I'm talking about. Let's get into the video. In reality, the most casual experience that you can have with a tabletop role-playing game requires a good amount of work if you want to get the best out of one of these games, no matter how you do it, no matter how you approach it. Even a game master that will wing it has taken some time to learn their craft. That winging it is not just coming from nowhere. It's taken time. It's taken work. Even if you're not seeing all that work right there in that campaign, and that one-shot, and that adventure, there's been work that came before that got that game master to the point where they can wing it. They can go in with a little bit of prep, maybe almost no prep, and run a good session. Now they're still gambling because that can fall apart on you. You go in and wing it, and no matter how long you've been doing this, sometimes it's just, you're not there. You're not mentally there. And if you have no prep work to back you up, that session can go, straight off a cliff. And you don't want that. So when you go in unprepped, make sure you have some experience. Don't do it too often, because in reality, you're still testing fate. It's not going to work out every time. And there could be a night, where you just haven't prepped, you try to wing it, and it's going to cave on you. It's not going to work out. Here is what I have gotten from my experience. The easier you make a tabletop role-playing game, the lazier people that are playing the game and running the game get. It's no good for what we're doing. It makes people lazier. In 1974, we didn't start with a grid and miniatures. That came later to help DMs. But I look at tools like that, in my honest opinion, as making it easier to run combat, making it easier to do something, and automatically you notice a lot of players that use miniatures or game masters that use miniatures, they get semi-lazy. And this doesn't just hurt them in the area of combat, it hurts them in other areas of the game. Now, when you get to modern day gaming, you see a lot of easy tools that are built right into the games. And what happens? It makes people lazier. It's like, okay, we can brainwash you into learning this, but it's going to be so easy, it's going to be programmed into you, and by the end of it, you're not going to want to learn another game. You might notice that a lot of 5e players simply don't want to go through the process of needing to learn a game because they have become mentally lazy in what they're doing. This is why games like 5e give you all the options as a player, so you pick A, B, or C. It doesn't really demand that you think for yourself. Same thing with the Game Master. Oh, there's a lot of work, but the Game Master doesn't have to do a lot of thinking. They're the middle person between the books and the players. In a hobby that is based on a mind game, that really demands that you put a fair amount of work into what you're doing to make it go right, being mentally lazy is like a plague. It's like a virus on the hobby, and it is destructive. And the more of us that get lazy, the more destructive it is to the hobby overall. It's hard to be in public games when everyone around you is half-assing. Giving a half-hearted attempt at what they're doing. It just destroys public gaming. But it also affects the personal table at home. People are just going to half-ass. It's really hard to find a good group nowadays. Though they exist, they're now in the minority. That's just true. Most people in the hobby are really lazy. And you look at 5e people, it is really sad to see them get, programmed into a game where it's easy to get that information in their mind. It's not the greatest game in the world. And it makes them lazy. It makes them mentally lazy. So now you can't get them to want to learn other games. Oh, I gotta relearn a whole new game? I don't want to do that. And people will call a lot of these casual people that are coming into the hobby tourist. Well, the truth is, it's not all tourist. Some of the people in that mix are actual regular nerds that got caught up in a bunch of nonsense. And we should be talking to them, but we're not. Because they're taking, our view of them being tourists as them being tourists, not just the other casual people. They take it as as an insulting thing that comes from the old school. Oh, you're saying I'm only here for a minute? Well, I want more. I just don't know what I'm doing. And yeah, to a degree, they want more. They just don't know what to do. And what has happened? The game and the experience they've had has made them lazier, mentally lazier. In some cases, I find like WotC D&D. What it does to a lot of smart people is it numbs their minds, especially with 5e. Hey, don't think for yourself. Pick A, B, or C. Now, I'm not saying that there's not some potential, talent in the 5e player, group, right? I'm not saying that I'm better than you. I'm criticizing the 5e game and what I think it does to even really good people, right? Even nerds I would be happy to game with. It screws them up and they might have to go through a bit of rehab to get them to the point where they stop being lazy and really put the effort in. And when you're being lazy during a gaming session, how well are you running your imagination? How deep are you into what's going on? When I was a player, I could get into the game the same way I would get into a good book, a good novel. Because when I read, my imagination it flares up. And I fire that up during a gaming session. But it takes effort. Like it doesn't seem tedious after you get used to doing this, but it always takes some effort. And when you get lazy people, and you need to get them to a spot where they're not being lazy or they're building up good habits, they don't realize that it's not a lot of work to get there. It's just hard to get them, even through the gate, even to get them to start creating the habit and getting rid of what's going to seem tedious at first. It seems like a lot of people in the hobby now, if they feel something tedious, they run away from it. They don't understand that in a short period of time, the tedious feeling goes away. But that's where we are. And we got people out there that will promote this lazy approach. They'll even make money off this lazy approach. It hurts the hobby overall. It's very destructive to the hobby. But hey, if you can make a few bucks, you'll do whatever, right? What sucks for me is I'm on here working towards something like many other people. And I'm not on here working towards just helping the hobby. It's a combination. Help the hobby, help myself, put the effort in, look for a reward. But then I have to put stuff like this out that's good content for the hobby, but there's no reward for me, right? Stuff like this will spread over time. People pushing back against laziness, but you got to do it. You actually got to make the post. You got to put the video out there actually countering this stuff. You can't just, slightly say it during a stream. You really got to make a point of it to get people to think about it. And if it's not popular, like this is not popular, then it could take 5 or 6 years before your idea really spreads. You got to get a few people to listen and be convinced. They got to go out and talk and push these ideas out to other people. And maybe at one point people start getting the point. Yeah, if we really want to get a great experience from a tabletop role-playing game, we have to put the effort in. And we can't just close ourselves up because we don't feel like reading. Well, the hobby demands that we read. It demands that we, use our imagination. It demands that we work our minds hard to get an exciting, great experience from the game. Look, I'm not pitching that everyone goes and has fun. I'm not saying that's what games produce. They produce a good time. A good time isn't always a fun time. It could be a stressful time. But it is an interesting time that you're able to enjoy because you're there for the competition for the game. But if you're lazy, all of that falls apart, and then you fall back to things that don't matter. Like role-playing and character development can be great, but it has to be in combination that you're playing a game. Right? Like, if you get lazy about the game and just, drop over to role-playing, I guess that's easy. You can ignore the, all the mechanics and whatnot. Hey, no problem. You can do that. Or you can get lazy on either end, which I say is not good for anyone. But lazy has been a plague. And unlike back in the old school, back in the 80s and 90s, where people put the work in, like this is back, the angry video game nerd, years, 80s, 90s. Go back there. You had to have an imagination to enjoy things. You had to put in work to enjoy things. And that was a great time to be gaming because everyone was putting the work in, and it was absolutely amazing. And if you experienced those old school gaming sessions, you'd agree with me. That was an amazing time, especially if you're around the right people to be gaming. But now, where back then the majority put the effort in, now the vast majority are absolutely lazy. And in my opinion, I would use terms like good for nothing, because if you're going to be lazy, that's what you're being. Doesn't mean you can't be better than that, but if you're being lazy, you're really good for nothing, and you're not good for the game overall. And you won't be good for anyone you're going to game with. But most likely nowadays, where everyone's lazy, everyone at the table is going to be people you shouldn't be gaming with, all trying to game together, and then only getting 6 sessions, or games falling apart everywhere, and not working out. You can see it. You can see public gaming dying. You can even see the gaming at home dying, right? It's just all around. The gaming session is disappearing. More people are watching people play the game, or playing Baldur's Gate 3, or reading the books, or now they're doing streams and making videos, but they're barely doing any real gaming. Because gaming isn't that attractive. The experience of the gaming session isn't that great. For most people, it's a disappointment. You hear all this shit about it, you get there, and it feels disappointing. And in most cases, it is disappointing. And why is it disappointing? Well, partly because you're just not being outward and confident with what you're doing. But at the same time, in many cases, you're running into people that are being lazy. So that effort from people around you, and most likely yourself, is not that great. So it doesn't create the great experience that you're looking for. It gets hacked up. And you have to you become numb to this half-assed experience to the point you start accepting it as decent or good. Right? But it's not, and you can do better. And this is true for most people in the hobby today. They can do better. They can stop being lazy. Laziness in 2023 in the tabletop role-playing game hobby is outrageously bad. When I say the vast majority, I'm not talking 51%. I'm talking more up in like the 90% zone of lazy, half-assed people who are not good at these games, not because they're not good potentially. They're not good at them because they're fucking lazy. And what I see that's called good nowadays, I don't know. It's all disappointing to me, but at the same time, I have my groups. I have my game. I'm safe, right? And I really want to work towards something. I don't want to always have to put videos like this out that just leave me dead in the water. It's going to help everyone else. I'm going to be fine. But it gets me nowhere in certain ways. I'll never be credited, even if this video inspired people. And that push and create a change. I will never be credited with that. I'll never be rewarded for any effort I put out there that's like this. And that's true with other things I've done in the past, where I push something or I make a criticism about, say, miniatures or something like that, where you can't do that at the time without people going insane. And now, years later, I took a lot of heat. Now everyone can talk about these things very calmly. And I will never be rewarded for the shit that I went through. Ever. For the heat I took for that, death threats, the whole 9 yards over that debate. I'll never be rewarded for bringing that to, the front and getting people to openly talk about this until, the anger went away and people calmed down and talked like mature adults. I had to go through the immature death threats and everything else. And so when you do stuff like that, and I knew at the time I was never going to be popular for that. I know I'm not going to be popular for this video. But I think if you really give a damn to a degree, go ahead. And some people will say it really only matters what you're doing at your own table. Look, here's what you got to know. There's nothing wrong with that position, and there's nothing wrong with giving a damn about the overall hobby in the future. One position is not better than the other, right? That's it. You don't have to care, and I think that's fine. Logically, I get where you're coming from. But I do give a shit. That's why I make videos like this. That's why I'll take the hit, say the thing that's not going to be so popular. Hell, I'll get some people that will be so bitter with videos like this that I'll probably lose some followers and potential future followers from putting out this video. Right? But if you're going to do the right thing, do it. Right? Don't just come here looking for money. Right? And I'm not just here for that. When I say I want to build up and I have other goals, it's something more than money. It's not just that, but it is goals. And all this does is it helps the hobby, but it really doesn't help me at all. It puts me in a standstill mode. And I don't like it to a degree, But hey, you got to practice what you preach. I preach at people, say stuff like this, confront issues like this. Well, I get why they won't. I would like to see people do that, but it doesn't help them. That's why other content creators aren't going to come out and make a video like this. It doesn't help them. They're all going to make videos for just the likes and the views. That's it, right? No matter what they tell you, that's going to be the truth. Anyway, for now, take care. You know what you can do? You can hit the like button. You can share the video. Oh, and there's another button you can press. That one that lets you subscribe to my channel for more content. Oh yeah, there's that bell thing. You can press that so you know when I've uploaded a new video right away.